Welcome back at WNST, Taos of Baltimore and Baltimore Positive. We are taking our show on the road. It is the Maryland Crab Cake Tour presented by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. Still have a handful of the Ravens scratch-offs to give away. I'm going to be getting the scented tickets. I've been told not to call them sniffers for the gingerbread as well as the peppermint. Next month, we'll have that. We have a dozen crab cake tours out. We're at Fadley's this week. I'm wearing my Costas shirt in Dundalk. We'll be there on Tuesday. We'll be at Pappas in Parkville the following Tuesday in time for Thanksgiving. And then we're going to be at Coco's. We're going to be at Gertrude's at the BMA. We're also going to be winding things up at State Fair and at Curio Wellness and at Wise Markets. We're getting everywhere out on the Crab Cake Tour. It's also presented by our friends at Window Nation, 866-90 Nation. You buy two, you get two free, 5 years, 0% financing. And our friends at Jiffy Lube Multi-Care, where I have my oil changed. As I said to John Waters on the program this week down at Merritt Boulevard. We love doing charity stuff around here, and holidays come up, and I got to apologize because I'm doing my show on Friday morning at Fadley's, and I invited a guest from one of the downtown executive organizations. They're like, "That's a holiday," and I'm like, "Oh wow, I have Veterans Day." Because we have Veterans Day things happening here this weekend. I always see veterans ads and stuff, and the Rob Gronkowski thing, and I think my grandfather served, my father-in-law served in Vietnam, and certainly for veterans everywhere, and you have them in your family. We often say, and I've said this a million times, and I've said this to everybody from Sarbanes to Cardin to Hogan, we don't do enough for our veterans. And there's a lot of organizations out there doing things for veterans. Misty Bruce is here. She's executive director of all things MCVET. That's MCVET. You can find them out. Local organization. You can find them out on Facebook. They're doing just a sort of a powerful movement here this week to get people involved, to raise some funds, raise some awareness, and try to help some folks. Misty, how are you? I'm glad you're feeling better and back on the beat here just in time for Veterans Day.
Yeah, no, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I appreciate your mercy and grace. I know we rescheduled last week, so I appreciate that.
Infinite flexibility is the key to immortality. And Deepak Chopra taught me that. And, I ran into him on the street in New York one day. It was 100 degrees. And I swore if I ever ran into him, I would have said that to him, and I didn't. And he walked away, and I'm like, infinite flexibility is the key to immortality. It was like I yelled at him.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be flexible here. What should people know about your organization and veterans in general and people in need? I had an uncle who served in Korea who certainly needed help at the end of his life, mental health challenges down the line, all the worst things you can imagine. And, a lot of times people in my family didn't know where to go. I know your organization prides itself on trying to be that kind of organization to say, hey, no questions asked. We can help you.
That's right. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about MCVET. I've been here a short time, about 8 or 9 months now. And when I walked into the building the first time, I noticed that this organization has a really unique ability to take someone that's maybe been said no to 5, 10, 15 times, right? Where other organizations have closed the door on them. MCVET takes those people and they give them purpose. We offer, the workforce development programs, wraparound clinical services to include mental health, substance use, psychiatric care, all of those beautiful things. But we also provide a sense of community. We reinstill pride in oneself and accountability into those folks who maybe have gotten what it feels like to be a part of something.
Well, I mean, I've seen the tragedy, the triumph stories, but all of these people at one point did push-ups, went through basic training,
Yeah.
maybe went to war or to the cusp of war or to places seeing and doing things we don't talk about around here, especially in, when we talk about Afghanistan, Iraq, and the extent of that for all of that. And I think, all of us know someone that has either survived or didn't survive through all of this. I mean, I'm 55 now. As I get older, I think about people that have had these problems. And so for your organization, give me a day in the life and what the message should be to people out there. If you have someone in your life who needs help, or if you just want to be benevolent, you have abundance in your life and you're like, hey, it's Veterans Day. I want to do something to get involved. You guys have given folks a chance to do that this week.
Yeah, we are. So MCVET has been hosting a 5K, 10K for 28 years. It's been in existence 30 years. It's the 30th anniversary in 2023. And so in keeping with that tradition, we, doing it again this year. And we added a 1 miler portion to it so that do it as you can and how you can kind of piece. So if you need to hike it, swim it, bike it, you got to push a baby stroller, right? Everyone's on their own journey. Wanted to acknowledge that everyone's on their own journey. So there's an extra component to it this year that you can opt into if you'd like. All of the funds that are raised by this event, of course, sink right back into MCVET programming to keep the doors open, to continue to provide a safe, warm place for those veterans who have no other resources to come to, but also to keep our workforce development programs going and our clinicians in-house. You know, we have 8 social workers in the building, and that's pretty phenomenal for a
Tell me about
small
your building.
nonprofit.
What is your building? Yeah, because we're virtual here, and I could pull a website up, but you mentioned people there serving other folks. People reside at MCVET, yes?
They do. Yeah, we can house up to 249 people in our building. We have a combination of an emergency shelter, transitional housing facility, and we have an SRO, single room occupancy building that's set up like dorm style, so that there's different levels of entry, but also different levels of transition, so that it doesn't have to be a one and done or fast pace. People can transition as they need to, which I think is pretty incredible. And it's an interesting
Well, I was
building.
going to ask about that.
Yeah.
What does a transition look like? What is a hope
Yeah.
from any? I mean, obviously the hope is for a successful transition, no matter
Mhm.
how long it takes. Like, how long would you give the baby to walk? Well, the rest of its life.
That's right.
We're in. But
Mhm.
but trying to resurrect someone's self-esteem. Obviously they would have job skills. I mean, just in the very basic sense that they served, if their mental capacity is still there, they can provide value for a world that needs employment right now.
That's right. I would say that that's one of the things that is we start with is they meet with an intake specialist, and that person spends time with them getting to know what their barriers to success are. What makes them tick, what they enjoy, what they need help with. Sometimes it's interesting. People will say, well, I don't need help with anything. And then those things that they need help with slowly, as they become a little more secure in their surroundings or a little more trusting, begin to present themselves. And so we take the time to assess each individual and try to provide them with what they need to be what their definition of successful is, right? Because we have veterans in here in their 70s. They're Vietnam veterans and they're in their 70s. So successful to them may look like our youngest veteran, who I believe is 28, that's in here. So we do really
That's a
try to spend
wide
time.
that's a wide swath of people, right? And you mentioned men, women too.
We do have women in our program. We always seem to have fewer women than men, from what I'm told historically, and that number fluctuates from 2 to 15. And so I think currently we're at 7.
I wonder what the numbers are over the last 50 years of service, male versus female, just across all service categories, just in general. How male
That I can't
dominated
answer.
you would expect the service to have been in the 70s and 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I can't answer that. I can answer that MCVET has served over 13,000
Wow.
individuals, 13,000 people over the last 30 years. Veterans have come through the doors asking for help.
That's right here in Baltimore.
Baltimore City. It was the former Maryland Cup Company that, and they were bought out by Solo, and it was a part of St. Joseph's School. And I have to fact check this, but someone told me a story that Babe Ruth came through here to get some like a tech training, if you will. I guess he was a naughty child.
He was a troubled child. Yeah, he's a famously troubled child. Yes.
Yes. And so his parents were like, what are we going to do with you, kid? So they were hoping the nuns could teach him a trade, but they didn't. What they taught him was how to play baseball. So we always tell everyone, surely if Babe Ruth can come here and pick up something to help him make an impression on the world, you can do that too.
All right. You can get out to MCVET and help them. You can find them. Facebook's probably the easiest way to find them, but MCVET 2023 Veterans Day Tribute. I'm going to pull it up on our screen share here for anybody that is watching, so you can kind of click and see what things are going on here. 25 and a $35 level for a 10K walk, a 5K walk and run, a 1 mile run as well. It's a virtual event, so it's wherever you are. I would say from the virtual side of this thing, we all gathered, and it's certainly good to get in shape and all that. But the pandemic changed a lot of things, and I think over the last 3 or 4 years, I've talked about a lot of virtual virtual. Weather's been nice too. I would think at some point we'll get this thing back in the park and get people together and serve some beverages, right?
Yeah, that's what we're thinking for next year. We'll go back to our good old in-person run with the transition of bringing in a new executive director. Really, it was an extension of mercy from the board. They were like, okay, not going to be able to pull this off in person in this amount of time. So
Well, you're
they,
drinking from the fire hose as the executive
yeah,
director, MCVET, I'm sure. So early on, what have you learned about your journey there and your work on a personal level? You and I were out at a cocktail function. I'd say, well, you know what? What do you learn being in that environment that maybe you didn't know working, and you served a long, long time for the Red Cross as well? I mean, you've been involved in helping people all your professional life.
yeah. So I'll tell you, I'm gonna
It's all right when your phone rings.
hang
It
up
lets
on
people
my,
know that we're really doing it. Yeah, it's good.
yeah. So I'll
And
tell
somebody
you,
that needs help, answer them, not me.
yeah. So I'll tell you just a little lightning speed story. So I came to McVet, I felt compelled to, drawn to it. I wasn't necessarily looking for a career change, but something I felt drawn to do this. And I came here, and for the first 90 days, I worked 16 to 18-hour days, all day, every day, Saturday, Sundays, every day.
It's
I,
got to
you
be
know,
emotional seeing people come in that environment. It just has
it
to be.
is,
And then you get
especially
attached
if
to these
you,
people and you cheer for them, you know?
that's right. But I'll tell you, so I came here for the first 90 days doing it because I felt like they needed me. Then on Memorial Day weekend, we got a check presentation from Congressman Mfume for $3 million, a community
My
expansion
former
grant.
neighbor, give it up for Say. I got to
Yeah.
get him on the show over at State Fair soon. He owes me one.
And then, so from ran from the War Memorial over here to McVet, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump, but to change out of my dress into my Orioles gear, right? Because going to the baseball game with our friends from Truist, taking our veterans. And when I was pausing at my security desk to say, okay, here's the rundown, one of our Vietnam veterans who had approached me in the parking lot a few weeks earlier, he came to me and he said, Miss Bruce, I'm really appreciative for being here. I was wondering if you could do me a favor. The guys are all talking, and they said that if I need something, you're the person to ask. And I was like, sure, what do you need? And he said, all you have is a size 14 shoe in the McVet Mall. So we have a donation center we call the McVet Mall. I need a 14 and a half. I was wondering if you could get me a pair of 14 and a half sneakers through one of your connections, maybe by winter. And I was like, huh. And he said, I'm really sorry I asked. I probably shouldn't have approached you in the parking lot. There is a rule against that. And I was like, there's a rule against that? Right. Remember, I'm still new. I didn't know all the rules. And so I was like, no, I was just thinking I don't usually work that slow. Come see me next week. So then fast forward back to me at the security desk, he came up to me and he said, Miss Bruce, I broke in my new shoes that you got me. And I was like, that's great. He said, I went on a walk and I got you this. And I was like, I can't accept gifts. He was like, it's just a card. It's paper. You could shred it afterwards. And so I opened it and I read it. And here's what I've learned from a Vietnam veteran. I said, Miss Bruce, you talk every day to us about living life with a grateful heart. Something else that I've learned from you is you don't always have to be able to walk a mile in someone else's shoes to care about them. Sometimes you just have to be the person to buy them the shoes so they can walk their mile. And to me, that was just a really special moment to just remember that we're all put here for a reason. And it was at that moment that I realized that I had become the type of humanitarian who rubber stamped things, right? Who said, nope, not in my budget. Nope, not my mission. Or I can't do that. That's not my job description.
That's against
I
the
had
rules.
become,
That's a dumb rule.
it's against the rule, right?
Right.
So I had become that
Well,
type
you're
of
talking to
humanitarian.
the ultimate rule breaker here. So yeah, I mean
Oh,
that's who
oh,
I
I
am.
know.
So
I
yeah.
know. So I had become that type of humanitarian, and this Vietnam veteran reminded me that I actually was put here to effectuate change at a grassroots level, and I had forgotten that.
But what can people do other than give you $25? What are some other things they could do to be of assistance other than if I had, and I don't have a pair of 14 and a half shoes, by the way, I don't, I,
It's fine. I bought them. I went and bought. Hey, he
what can
wanted white
people do?
on white Reeboks. That was it was very inexpensive to get those for him. um, we're just now in a place where we can take volunteers. So I would say you can email us at info@mcvet.org. If you have items that you would like to donate, we're in need of winter coats and winter clothing. We're in need of volunteers. If you like to serve meals, we serve 3 hots a day here at McVet, 365 days a year. Of course, I won't turn down any financial donations ever. And I would say, if you know a veteran in need, that's the biggest way you can help McVet. If you know a veteran in need, reach out to us. We'd love to touch their lives.
Let's get him some help. Misty Bruce is here. She's the executive director of all things MCVET, Veterans Helping Veterans. You can go to mcvet.org to learn more, and certainly up on their Facebook page as well. Very good visit with you. Very inspirational story. It's Veterans Day weekend. Hug a veteran. Buy them a beer or coffee, or go take them to Rofo, or do what the Rofo did for me. Rofo reminded me that my birthday was 3.5 weeks ago, and I have like 4 days to get my free chicken and Western fries. So shout out to Rofo. I love you guys too. So take care of your veterans out there. Take care of folks. You can learn more at mcvet.org, McVet, local organization right here in Balmer, right where John Waters is from, who joined the show this week. I've done a lot on the Maryland Stadium Authority this week. We had a great conversation with Leonard Raskin this week, and I had a great chat with Mike Rosenfeld about etiquette at concerts. So we are really stretching out above and beyond Luke's work out in Owings Mills. If you're on the WNST Tech Service, brought to you by our friends at Coons Baltimore Ford. You will get all the injury reports first for Cleveland, for Cincinnati this week, as well as Luke on the fields in Owings Mills. I am Nestor. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.